Morning and happy Thursday.
Hi, Jaisha. Nice to see you.
Hi, Dane. It's good to see you again. It's been a few months.
You'll see me as soon as I can figure out how to get my video going. There we go. Oops, now I have to do that. Interesting. There.
And Zane,
There we go.
Hey there, Jaisha. Great to meet you.
same here. So we have Zane and Dane. Okay.
No, two uncommon names.
Being for it.
Nice
Dane, where is that
name.
behind you?
That is this is in the financial district of San Francisco. So the Korn Ferry offices are on the 22nd floor of that building.
Oh.
This is a leftover from COVID. When I was getting nostalgic about never being in the office, I adopted this as my background.
22nd floor. I'm sure that's an awesome view of the city.
It's a great view. It's got a 300, I mean, there's buildings in the way, but it has a 360-degree view of San Francisco. So it's nice to see, and it's on the less foggy side of the peninsula. So it's nice.
That's one of the perks of working in the office, to have those spectacular views and to be able to soak all that in and get that ambiance.
That's right. Yeah, no, it's great. It's and see the tops. You know, it's interesting. A lot of the tops of the buildings are the most interesting architecturally. There's lots of interesting details and stuff in some of these buildings in the financial district that you couldn't see from the street, really. So yeah, everything has its interesting elements.
It does. And sometimes you want to know, like, what was the inspiration for that design or that motif? And so, yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a different time. I mean, people just don't build buildings like that these days and haven't for a long time.
Yeah.
My wife points that out every time we go to San Francisco. She's always telling me to look up.
Yeah, good advice generally, but yes.
Just in general. Okay, we're at 10:03. I'm just going to wait a couple more minutes to see if we have any other organizations that will be joining us. So just give me a few more minutes, and then if about 10:05-ish, if no one joins us, then we will proceed with our information session today.
Great.
Sounds good.
Okay.
How's everything going with you, Jaisha?
So far so good. You know, we're busy here. We have a lot of projects, and we're all doing what we can to move this work forward, and leveraging our project teams and giving them support, tools, and resources that they need as well. So yeah, we have a very comprehensive diversity, equity, and strategic plan, which I'll talk a little bit more about in our information session. So just looking forward to us making progress on a lot of those action items. We've already made some progress, but there's still ways to go. It's a 5-year plan. So yeah, so it's just been amazing to see how everything is unfolding, kind of do that look and review in the past to inform our trajectory forward. We're making some course corrections. So yeah, it's been a very enlightening and illuminating journey.
Good. Yeah, well, persistence is a lot of life, and you all have been very persistent in moving this forward. It might seem like small steps, but this is the journey of 1,000 miles, as the old saying goes.
Exactly. And that's how I have to kind of remind myself and stay grounded in that as well.
Yeah. Well, great. It's great work. So thanks for doing it.
Yes.
You mentioned a 5-year plan.
A 5-year DEI strategic plan. Yes. Yeah. And so yeah, I'll cover some of that. And of course we'll have a Q&A session for you to ask any questions that come up, or some things that maybe just provide some clarity on for you. So okay. All right, we're at 10:05. So I'm just going to go ahead and move forward. And as people join in, we'll have to kind of bring them up to speed on where we are, and then I can always maybe stay on and answer any questions they have. Do you want to introduce yourself? And you is my colleague, and will be supporting me in advancing our PowerPoint, but also she has been very played a pivotal role in our RFP development process as well.
Good morning, Jaisha. Good morning, everyone. My name is Yu Dang. I'm an executive assistant to the director of the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture. So I provide support to him along with all the divisions that are under ODEC. So I'm still fairly new to the role, started since late August, I think. But it's been a real wonderful journey learning about all the projects we're working on and the initiatives. So yeah, I'll be here supporting Jaisha during this info session.
Good to see you again, you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
All
Nice to
right.
meet everyone.
Can everyone see the the PowerPoint?
Yes.
All right, awesome. And also, look, you can hear me well. Okay, let's make sure that my mic is all queued up. Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Okay, so welcome and thank you for joining us and hopefully to learn more about our leadership competency model RFP. So this information session is tailored for you to provide more information and background on the impetus for this RFP and also to, again, provide an avenue and platform for you to ask us any questions as it pertains to this RFP. Please move forward, you. So today's agenda, we have an hour, well, maybe 55 minutes. So we're going to have some brief welcome and introductions. I will provide an overview of East Bay Municipal Utility District, also known as East Bay MUD. I also provide an overview of the office that you and I are a part of, which is the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture, also known as ODEC. We'll also talk about the pillars that are in our DEI strategic plan, specifically Pillar 1, which is leadership commitment and accountability, which is really the anchor for this RFP. Kind of go over our why. Again, the impetus for this RFP really is to provide, to develop and implement a leadership competency framework that provides employees with the tools and resources to lead themselves, to lead others, and ultimately that cascades into leading the organization in accomplishing our mission, vision, and goals. I also will speak about our target classification groups so you kind of understand who we're targeting specifically when we're talking about for the leadership competency. And then again, we'll have space for questions and answers. Any questions before we move forward?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Zane.
All good on my side. You go for it, Dane.
Oh, I was just going to ask, will we get a copy of these slides at the end?
Sure, yes, I can send them to you.
Yeah, I think that would probably be helpful. Thank you. And I'm sorry, one other just very tactical question. My colleague Terry was unable to join today because of having a conflict, and she asked if it would be possible to get a copy of the recording. I know you're recording it.
Yes, it will be uploaded to the RFP section. So the slide deck, by virtue of being recorded, it'll also be available there. So I will send you a link to the recording once it is uploaded, and then also we'll send you the PowerPoint presentation as well. So I can send you as well, Zane.
Great, thank you. I'll be quiet now.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. So I want to be able to provide a space for you to get to know me and also for me to get to know you. So my name is Jaisha White. I am the Senior Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Analyst here at East Bay MUD. And again, I am situated in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture. East Bay MUD is a water utility district. We provide drinking water and wastewater services to Alameda and Contra Costa counties. And again, my role is centered around advancing all activities as it pertains to the implementation and operationalizing our DEI strategic plan. So I'm also a part of managing and providing leadership and support and guidance to our racial equity core teams, our diversity committee, what else, our affinity groups. I'm trying to think. Also working on our inclusive leadership forums. So just a lot of vast array of things and initiatives that I am blessed and fortunate to be a part of, and really creating opportunities for people to participate in building and maintaining an inclusive and equitable work culture here at the district. So I will turn it over to you, Zane. Oh, my pronouns are she, her, and hers.
Awesome. Thanks. My name is Zane Grace, he, him. I represent 34 Strong. We help public sector organizations become great places to work. We believe that every public sector employee deserves a great workplace, a great work environment, a great manager. And so we help provide custom coaching and training solutions to meet that need. Everything from recruitment, finding the right people, bringing them in, onboarding them, developing them, getting them in the right role, upskilling them, promoting, all the way to off-ramping. We really create a great employee experience for public sector organizations that attracts and retains top talent. My role at 34 Strong is government services specialist. So I'm the guy that gets to learn all about government contracting and government funding vehicles and writing RFPs. And I'm our expert in pretty much the full catalog of what we do. So I help put together work plans that lead to success.
Thank you again, and thanks for joining us. Okay,
Of course.
Dean.
Yes, so I'm Dane Cannon. I'm a senior client director with Korn Ferry based. I live here in San Francisco and work out of our San Francisco office. Korn Ferry is a global organizational consulting firm. We work with our clients to design optimal organization structures, roles, and responsibilities. We help them hire the right people and advise them on how to reward and motivate their workforce while developing professionals as they navigate and advance their careers. We have a large diversity, equity, and inclusion practice at Korn Ferry that has its origins in one of the companies that Korn Ferry has acquired over the years, Global Innovations. It really permeates everything we do and how we approach all of our engagements with clients. And delighted to have an opportunity to participate in your RFP process.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. Okay, you please advance to the next slide. So just a little bit about EBMUD and specifically the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture, also known as ODEC. So a high-level overview, EBMUD provides high-quality drinking water for 1.4 million customers in the Alameda and Contra Costa counties. We also provide award-winning water treatment protection for the San Francisco Bay, and that means that we serve over 700,000 customers. Regarding ODEC, we're a newly formed office in the district. We were established in July 2021 to lead the development and operationalization of the DEI strategic plan. We provide guidance on the application of an equity lens to all programmatic and policy decision making. We use GARET's, the Government Alliance for Racial Equity, their equity toolkit, and that's the tool that we're using to help our different business operations be able to learn what it means to look through all policy decisions through that equity lens. Next slide, please. So our DEISP pillars, so just to back up again, I mentioned that our strategic plan is a 5-year plan, and it's actually grounded in 3 key principles. Principle 1 is employee involvement and engagement. Principle 2 is the application of the equity toolkit that I mentioned, and 3, continuous improvement. And our 5 pillars are leadership commitment and accountability, workforce diversity, inclusive culture, supplier diversity, and social responsibility. And so as it pertains to really the impetus for developing a standardized leadership competency model framework, that really is in the first pillar of leadership, the commitment and accountability. And with in mind that guides and informs the achievement of all the other pillars. So it's really important that situated there, the competencies are in place so that our current workforce, but also our emerging and new employees that come in know what's expected of them, and that they know that they have where to close those skills gaps to move each of those pillars forward. Any questions about the pillars? All right.
Not right now. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So let's talk about our why. So as you know, and based on your description of what your organization is doing, that this work is not new to you, but a competency model really is that tool that creates opportunities and pathways for our formal and emerging leaders to learn, grow, and develop as successful and inclusive leaders. So we want to also emphasize the inclusive piece on that. And so it's really important that we have a competency model that is really specific to kind of three prongs, providing tools, knowledge, and behavioral attributes that are specific to leading yourself, because you have to lead yourself before you can lead others. So then the next part is how we provide a framework that also contributes to leading others, and then also to how that advances and progresses to leading the organization. Some things that we have right now, we do have a leadership development program, but we're also looking to expand that. We want to also look at providing a program that is specific to not just people that are currently in formal leadership positions, but also for those that are emerging leaders. How are we equipping them and giving them the tools and keys to success? And that's really what the competency model will also be for them. It'll be an opportunity for them to say, for this position at this level, these are the things that we identified as the key core competencies for an effective and successful inclusive leader. Do their own self-assessment and figure out how to develop their own leadership development plan. So that really will serve a purpose for our emerging leaders as well. We want to also be sure that we are being specific and intentional in identifying and communicating the leadership competencies that are required for successfully leading the organization. And as you know, leadership competency models inform a variety of activities and practices within the organization, but specifically, we also want to make sure that it's informing the way that we source, recruit, hire, onboard, develop, and also retain our leadership workforce. And also, we want to make sure that this model integrates some DEI-related competencies that will help support a transformative shift to a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive work culture. So that kind of captures our why in a nutshell.
Yeah, great.
Next slide, please. So our target classification group. So this is specifically a leadership competency model. So we are looking at approximately 130 classifications. And so what I did was look at all of the classifications that are eligible for our manager and supervisory training program. And so as of February, we have about 374 folks in those classifications. So that's kind of what we're looking at for our target right now. And they encompass a wide array of classification groups. So we're talking about classifications that are foremans and superintendents, but also in the administrative roles, your HR leaders, leaders in procurement and risk management. So it's a vast array of diverse leadership roles that we're talking about. Next slide, please. And that concludes our presentation of kind of a little background information and kind of underscoring our why. I've only been with the district since October 2020. And so based on speaking to my manager and also folks that have worked here longer than I think there's an informal leadership framework, but not a formal one. And so knowing where we are with the business landscape is evolving, and we're still in the midst of this pandemic. So now we have this hybrid model workforce that we didn't have 3 years ago. So we really want a competency model that is going to also, again, equip them with the requisite knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors, but also create a very agile and flexible leadership workforce that can be adaptable to and embrace the changes that come with having a hybrid workforce, and also just all the technology and innovations that will be coming down the pipeline and impacting many organizations. So what questions do you have for me today?
One question I have is the RFP was issued on the 3rd. We didn't get it till the 10th. And I wonder if there's any flexibility on the response due date.
So the response due date is April 21st. So
That's
is
right.
that not enough time to respond?
I mean, we'll get it done, but if we had an extra week, it would be helpful.
I will consult with my manager. I won't say no, but that's not something that we can do. I know that we do have a tight deadline because we would like to have the contract finalized June, correct you? It's June, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so I will connect with my manager just to see if we have any flexibility around that, and then I will follow up.
Okay,
And then I'll let everybody know, because it's not fair to extend it for one. So I'll let everybody know that if we have the green light to extend it a couple of days, then I'll inform everyone that of the extension. If it's
If we do decide to extend it, we will be posting it on the RFP page as an
Okay.
addendum.
Gotcha.
So just keep your eye out on the RFP page.
great.
That clarification, you.
And one other question is the RFPA asks for the proposal to be in 3 pages. Is that firm? You don't want more than 3 pages? It's.
I think that was the letter of transmittal. Dane, was that for the body as well?
Maybe I'm mistaken. I thought it was our proposal was supposed to be limited to 3 pages. I'm looking through the RFP now to try to find where that.
I know under the scope of work, it asks for the letter of transmittal to be limited to 3 pages, but I don't think there's a page limit for the actual description of services.
Okay.
I don't recall putting that in there. We didn't put any language like that in there, did we?
Not that I know of, but I'd have to look at the RFP to confirm.
Hey, Laura, good to see you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Laura. I'm coworkers with Jaisha and you. I'm here to support. I believe the understanding of the 3 pages that don't we're flexible with the proposal itself.
Okay.
But there's certain pieces of the proposal, yeah, that are dictated, but the proposal itself is flexible.
Great. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Laura. And Laura, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I've been with the district. We call ourselves a district. I'm being very deliberate about that, just so you get a feel of the culture. I've been here since 2003. I've worked primarily in HR under recruitment classification, test validation. I've now been with the employee organizational development group now since late 2019. I partner with Jaisha on a lot of our work related to our organizational culture and specifically about supporting our leaders and emerging leaders, because we really are trying to emphasize the opportunities for people who are already here, you know, trying to emphasize their potential, and also try to build that culture where there's an understanding of the qualities that are valuable in their career growth. And I know Jaisha already talked about the competencies, but just from my point of view, just to add to that, you know, it's been brought up over many years here in the district about, we need to think about some competencies specifically in regards to identifying key elements for recruiting for a lot of our positions, also for developing learning programs for that growing within, just so that our employees will have a better understanding of what it takes to be a leader. You're more than just the expert in your hands-on job, but what are those elements of leadership that would help you be effective in getting others engaged in the work, getting others committed and feeling good about the work. So I don't know if I spoke too much, but thank you, Jaisha.
No, and thank you for joining and providing that additional information. Again, Laura's been with the district for almost 20 years, so I do have to leverage her institutional knowledge on a lot of things, being that I've been here roughly about 2.5 years. And so, Laura, I don't know if you caught the earlier part or when you joined the presentation, but in the beginning, one of the things that I emphasized was that really it's a 3-pronged approach that the competency models really talk about. Self-leadership, how does one lead themselves in order to then lead others, and then how that cascades up to leading the organization. So really thinking about it through that 3-pronged approach. And also we were having, Laura's also tasked with kind of our managing and leading our employee engagement, employee feedback project. And so we were having a conversation about how do you prime the organization for engagement. It's kind of like when you think about, when you're painting your walls or putting up wallpaper, there's a priming process you have to go through. And I was just it came to me that that's part of what the competencies do. Having that also is how you prime the organization to be able to be conducive to creating this engaged, inclusive, and equitable work environment. So that's also what the outcomes that I want for this project to have, is that it also sets the foundation for priming the organization to be that engaging work environment, to be that inclusive work environment, to also make sure that we are not only hiring, but also, again, developing and retaining culturally competent, culturally responsive leaders as well.
So does the district have a competency framework, maybe that it's developed itself or that's being used now?
Laura is in our employee and organization development unit, which actually that manages our leadership development program. So I will defer to Laura on my understanding is no, but I think there's some informal things that they have in place, but not a formal standardized leadership competency model, to my knowledge.
Correct. Jaisha was correct. Just to add to that explanation, the district has not adopted a formal competency model where we're calling it out as these are our competencies, because by definition, those competencies would impact not only the development offerings that we provide our employees, but should also impact all other parts of the district, right? So we don't have a system that functions that way. The closest thing we have, and Jaisha touched upon it, there are some competencies that are addressed in our manager and supervisor training program. It's very narrow. It's made only specific for the manager and supervisor training program. So we foresee that the competency model that we're trying to achieve is not going to be applied in that narrow scope. Rather, we want it to be applied throughout all of the district in regards to anything related to what would make us better in being able to be leaders, right? And being able to perform, and being able to connect with each other, having that common language so that whenever a leader in the organization is working on a project or a program, there's a basis for it. So I don't know if I'm being too vague, but just know we don't have something formal set right now, but we're hoping for that.
And I would say, in addition to that, just based on, having experience in HR, I would say because there is a lack of a formal model, Laura, would you say there's also more of a reliance on the KSAs that are built into the class specifications as well? Okay.
Okay. And the roles that are the target audience for this, those management and supervisor roles, are there consistent job descriptions for those roles in the organization?
Yes, all of our job descriptions are public facing. So if you were to go to our EBMUD website, click on job descriptions, it may take you a few steps to get there, but it's there. And so all those classifications are there. I believe, like I said, I tried to count manually, so I did approximately 140 classifications that are identified as being eligible for the manager and supervisory training program. But all those classifications are there.
Okay. So Zane, I've got a few more questions, but feel free to jump in at any time if you have things you want to ask.
I appreciate it. I'm bursting with questions, but I can tell you've got all as well, so I want to make sure we're...
Well, we still have about 30 minutes, so we got time.
Okay.
Awesome.
So, go ahead, Zane, I'm sorry.
All right. One thing I'm really curious about, obviously there's a difference between leadership competencies and leadership tools. I know that you folks have leveraged in the past DISC, 5 behaviors, crucial conversations, you've got a 360 tool. Do we have a goal moving forward of continuing to leverage some mix of those, resurrecting those as part of the path forward, or are you open to introducing new tools into the ecosystem that might be practical for leaders to jump onto? Just curious about that mix.
What do you say, Laura?
You know, we're pretty open right now. Just what I've observed when it comes to those tools, we vet those tools. We give it a try with groups of leaders, and we find successes, and with each of them. Moving forward, there may be some benefit to having a tool that is clearly linked to those competencies that we come up with, but we haven't yet explored that. We're open to exploring them, because the how, that would be an interesting thing to think about. But right now, as you said, we do have some tools that we're using, and just know it's something that we're open to exploring other possible tools. But we've had great success with, I don't know if you both have heard of meeting leadership challenges. That's based in doing a 360, and then based on that 360, everyone gets a profile of how they perform in certain leadership aspects, and then that helps them dictate what they try to focus on for their own improvement. And it's a continuous learning type of tool for themselves. So just know that the methodology of looking at tools like that is well received by our leaders. The actual brand, I don't think, is an issue. It's about, what resonates with them.
Right, that makes sense. I'm not intimately familiar with meeting leadership challenges, but as a 360 tool, what I'm aware of, it's a really great feedback mechanism to help leaders, get that feedback from their peer group and environment around them. Is that customizable? If we come up with a set of leadership competencies as a result of this project, are we able to adjust the 360 framework to check that those are being implemented, or is that a more rigid framework?
It's an off-the-shelf package. So if there is any sort of linkage or customizable debrief or explanation about it, it would have to be another layer. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a vendor associated with the meeting leadership, the 360? Would they be helping to customize that, or would our role as the supplier for this project be to help customize that and add, some layers to that 360 to make sure that it's accounting for the new competencies?
I'll let Jaisha answer that, because I'm not really sure.
Okay, I'm sorry, my computer shut down, so I'm just rejoining. So if you can just restate the question for me.
No problem. That was happening to me all day yesterday when I was traveling. I was curious. So we're looking at developing a new set of updated leadership competencies. We currently have the meeting leadership challenges framework that's a 360 feedback tool. I'm curious if that 360 tool is capable of being updated to account for the new competencies that we're going to be developing, or if you'd be looking for a vendor to help you with that 360 process to make sure we're accounting for the new tools.
I think there will have to be an assessment to make sure there is some alignment on there. I think just from the DEI perspective, I know that 360 is a pretty effective and viable tool, but when you said tools, I immediately thought about what tools do we have in place, or what tools are needed to really help people build their capacity for inclusive leadership. And so I don't know if those models really specifically speak to inclusive leadership, maybe in a roundabout way. So I think that that's something that I would want to look at and see where's that DEI element, how integrated into there. And if it's not, then maybe we need to look at, are there potentially other resources that can still leverage some foundational stuff in the 360, but also make sure that it has some DEI elements to it as well.
Okay. That's perfect. Thank you. Dan, I'll pass this one back to you.
Thanks, Zane. So the stakeholders that will be engaging with on the project, how many are there, and where do they show up in the organization?
That's a great question, because definitely, stakeholder engagement is going to be a critical component of this process and really be guided by their input as well. So as of right now, we have our senior management team, which consists of 15 people. And that's our general manager, my Laura and I's manager, and department leaders across the district. Then the next level is our management team, which is really your mid-management folks. And I think that's about 100 folks. And Laura and I are part of that team as well. But that also includes, our HR folks and other mid-management across the district. So roughly about 100. And then we're talking about just the HR leaders, approximately 10. And then for leadership within the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture, which would be 7. So again, the HR leaders and the ODEC leaders are a part of that 100 for the management team. Laura, I'm trying to think of any stakeholders that I may be missing.
That's about right. In addition to that, I want to, if you need a visual, I'm going to give you a link to where the org chart can be found on our website.
Thank you.
Yeah, and then you'll have to scroll all the way down and click, and you'll see it. Yeah. But some parts of our stakeholder group aren't necessarily obvious. There's the element of our folks who work in construction and distribution, and everyone out there. The level of superintendent is huge. The superintendents and the supervisors beneath them, it's hard for me to determine. Sometimes they're not part of certain management teams, but they're a big element that you also need to consider. And I'm saying that out loud only because that org chart I'm sending you, just know those kinds of parts of the district aren't necessarily obvious, but they're a huge, impactful part of our organization as a community, because a lot of our work as a water utility, a lot of the employees fall under pipeline maintenance, installation, plant operations, whether that's for treatment or distribution. So if you think about that, that may not be reflected on that org chart I told you.
Okay.
And I'm also thinking probably maybe current and prior folks that have gone through our manager resi training. Those may also be some folks that we want to tap as stakeholder groups. I don't know how many number of folks, it may be a random sample that we want to tap, but yeah. I think people that went through that training program that are currently either current or prior attendees, participants would be a great potential key stakeholder audience as well.
Would it be fair to say that probably the district is open to some input from the organization they partner with on this for guidance on the size of that stakeholder pool and who to talk to and so forth? Or are you?
Yes, we want guidance on, when do you bring the stakeholders in and to what capacity? So that's the guidance that we would look for as where what that stakeholder engagement plan is going to look like.
Okay, great. And in terms of the existing documentation, can you share a little bit more detail on what that is that you have and what would be using for that part of the project?
So what was mentioned in the RFP?
Yeah.
So existing documentation would be things like our the district's overall strategic plan, our DEI strategic plan, our manager and supervisor training catalog, our class specifications, our tools. I'm trying to think what else. I'm drawing a blank right now, but we would definitely, with the selected vendor, identify what other documentation could be needed. I'm trying to think, maybe even like our exit survey data might be something that might be helpful. So yeah.
Okay, great.
Are those strategic plans things that we could find on your website? It would be really great to be able to build a plan
Yes,
that we
the
know is going
district
to have
one
alignment.
is, the district one is, and I can find the link and send that to you. But our DEI strategic plan is housed internally for the time being, but I can hopefully try to email that document or find a way to get it to you.
That would be
It's
great.
pretty
We want
big.
to be inside the lines for sure.
Right.
One thing I was curious about, so we've talked about the participants, and it sounds like there's about 100 mid-level managers. But Jaisha, when you mentioned the target audience, I think I saw there were close to 380 participants for this program. So could you help me understand the delta between the 100 and the 400?
Well, those will also include like our first level supervisors that we wouldn't categorize as mid-management folks. So mostly the management team, to my understanding, are most of the mid-management levels. We're also talking about that the additional would be your first level supervisors. And Laura, I need your help. It'll also include foremen and superintendents, which help me understand it's not necessarily supervisory or manager, there's somewhere in between. Help me clarify that a little bit.
So what was it that you were trying to clarify? Because yeah, our superintendents, yeah, they're not, because we have a formal group called the management team. I think that's what you're getting to.
Yes, I'm talking about 100 folks. And so clarification, as of February 2023, the folks that are in mass eligible classifications are 374. So if we subtract the 115, which would be the S&T and management team, then that excess would be your first level supervisors, your superintendents, your foremen. So just to kind of provide clarity on the composition of the excess.
Gotcha. So just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, then the 100 people that are part of like the management team, those cover the full organization, you know, the white collar, the blue collar side, water, wastewater, all of the above, just not all levels. It's
Correct.
not like the management team is maybe one side of that. Okay.
Correct.
That's good to know. Very good to know.
Well said, yeah, because some parts of our district are more vertical than others.
It's helpful. Have you worked with any big internal plans on these topics before? Have you ever brought any other outside vendors or consulting in this area before, or is this really one of the first times that you've had this level of resources and intention marshaled toward a program like this?
To my knowledge, again, I'm coming from a very limited tenure at EBMUD, so I would probably have to get back to you. I can't say definitively yes or no. Maybe there has been some external consultation on certain parts, but definitely not to developing a more standardized competency model. And there have been some elements of it. I believe there's been things around like engagement, I believe, but yeah, but not to this extent.
Okay, I was curious because we like to ask, do you have any lessons learned from working with past consultants on things that worked well or things that, maybe you'd like to see done differently? It sounds like there's maybe not a super recent memory of anything like that to share necessarily.
Not that I can think of, but I can definitely leverage my supervisor just to see if he has any experiences with other vendors and leverage their lessons learned.
That would be great. Yeah. So I'm sure, Dana and I each have our best practices, but, we want to follow what's going to work best for you guys.
Absolutely.
Dane, you got any more? Should I keep rolling?
Yeah, you can keep rolling. Mine will come out as we start to work on the response, and it's too late. So
ain't that just the way? I have a question around the budget target for the program. My assumption is that EBMUD has preferred not to share a budget target for this one to receive a range of competitive bids, which completely understand and happy to fall in. I'm sure Korn Ferry is the same way, but we can provide a plan with a pretty big range depending on your needs. So we want to make sure we're putting forward something respectful wherever possible. Do you happen to have a range of target that you might be able to share for this one?
Not at the moment.
Understood. Not a problem at all. I'll keep the train rolling then. When we look at some of the elements of the plan that have to deal with, the employee life cycle, things like recruiting, putting out the right job ads, the right interview process, the right onboarding. Sometimes we work with clients who, want us involved in performing those functions and consulting directly on them. And other times, the scope of work is really more about training the managers how to own those pieces themselves and help upskill all of your managers to be really talented hiring managers in that sense, to own the building of their teams. Seeing you nodding, I'm imagining that's the one that you're looking for more between the two of those.
I think there'll be a mix, but that's really the goal. It's kind of like, you give a person a fish, but then also, give them the tools to do the fishing themselves. And so I really think that gets back to that pillar one of leadership, commitment, and accountability, is giving the people that ownership, the agency to take on these roles. But of course, there needs to be some initial guidance, direction, and education. But then hopefully, again, we want them to be self-reliant and take that ownership and investment in understanding that their role is in effectuating change in those very facets that you mentioned.
Okay, that's all.
So just, I think related to this line of questioning, how much detail are you looking for on building? So once you have this framework, then building out or integrating with various the tools, I guess, to use that language. How much detail on that are you looking for in this response?
We do want some detail, again, because this is basically new work for us. This is new territory for us. So we want sufficient detail that will help us with the implementation process, how to best socialize this throughout the district. So we will be needing and requiring that some in-depth information on what that will entail. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It does answer part of it. Yeah, because are you interested in knowing what development capabilities, for example, we might have that align with competencies, or how there's just like, to your point, everything can come back to competencies, how you interview and so on. So how much detail are you looking for on what are Korn Ferry's capabilities around actually supporting those byproducts of having a sound competency framework in place?
Let me think that over, get back to you on that one. But just for the most part right now, I'm just looking at if I as an end user, and I would think my think is that I would ask you to put the end user perspective in mind, and just knowing that this is a new framework, this will be new to us. What do you feel would be most useful and most helpful and effective for them?
Okay.
Because it's going to be, again, applying models of the, aspects of the change, management model for them. This will be new. So how do, again, best practices for the socialization, and also give them the tools, resources, and that are effective in giving them the agency to move forward with the application of it. So I think that, again, centering that design center, centering the end user.
Great. Very helpful. Thank you.
At a high level then, Jaisha, as I hear you talking through this, it almost sounds like you're looking for, let me verbal process this out. It sounds like you're looking for a partner to help you develop these competencies, but also to train on them and around them to provide support that will help managers not only understand those competencies and why they're important, but also equip them with tools to upskill themselves and be effective and those competencies. And what I just heard you say with regard to the analogy of, you might start by fishing for someone and then showing them how to fish and doing that knowledge transfer over time. Are you looking for a train the trainer component on some of those, like recruitment pieces, for example, where we might develop a model for that and then as a partner help you execute on it, but also run a concurrent kind of train the trainer for your managers so they can see it in action and then take it over time? Is that kind of the flow that you're looking for?
That sounds, yes. I like how you package that and how you frame that. So yes.
That's really helpful. Thank you. Zooming back out just to a high level, something else I've been curious about, having more of a clear distinction between human resources, more the compliance side, and Office of Diversity, Equity, Culture, more of the development side. And I know there's kind of subgroups under that umbrella for engagement, organizational development, which is great. We don't always see dedicated departments for those things, which is fantastic. Can you extrapolate a little bit more on kind of the difference between HR and your office and maybe some of the other things that your office heads or is responsible for in terms of that whole mix of DEI, engagement, development?
Absolutely. So initially our office was under HR. So when this office was created, it was taken out of HR, and the two units that came from that were our DIO office, Diversity Inclusion Office, which also encompasses EEO, Affirmative Action Plan, and Workforce Development, Employee Organization and Development, which is the unit that Laura works as a part of, which oversees all, which really is builds in our overall learning strategy. So that's our leadership development, employee development, employee engagement. What else do y'all do, Laura?
We manage tuition reimbursement program, career coaching for individual contributors. And the aspects of organizational culture that we support and has to do with employee recognition, like Jaisha said. We also have a group dedicated to our organizational values. So that's a big piece of what we do. I think that pretty much covers it.
And then the other office is our contract equity office, which really has ownership over that supplier diversity pillar. So those are the three areas that fall under the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture. Now, as far as HR, and I'll have to lean on Laura because Laura spent a good time working for HR. So you have your employee relations, which does labor relations and also the progressive discipline process. You have employee services, which handles your benefits administration, timekeeping, processing, payroll, timesheets. That they also manage our HRIS system, retirement services. I think that's pretty much captured that. And then you have our classification and compensation unit, which does, class studies and ensures, benchmark studies around, and it helps develop our jobs classifications as well. And then we have our recruitment office, which does really the full life cycle of the recruitment process with engaging in outreach, working with managers to develop their recruitment plans, providing support on the interview process, the selection process, making sure that they uphold the civil service rules and the way that we hire and appoint employees as well. Did I miss anything, Laura? I'll have you fill in the gap since you work for HR. Okay. So really, this is going to be a partnership between HR and the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Culture. So we'll be co-owners of this model.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. I'm curious, we've talked a lot about some of the existing tools and models that you guys have. for things like recruitment, for things like your training program for managers. Sometimes we work with clients who, they have a mix, right? And they want us to come in and work around their current mix. They want us to integrate what they're currently doing into the new plan. Other clients, they want to completely replace what they've been doing, with something kind of all in one that is designed to link together. And other clients, they want to keep some version of what they've been doing, but they want help kind of elevating it to that next level. Thinking about those different tools and models that you're using currently, do you have a sense of if you're looking to integrate, upgrade, or replace?
Probably a little bit older. We definitely know that there's some things that we're doing well. So if I kind of think about like the stop, start, continue model, we would definitely look at what are some things that we're doing right now that we definitely want to continue that is shown to be proven successful and effective. Then what are some things that we probably need to stop doing? And then what do we need to start doing? So I think that I was listening to you, I think that's what we want to kind of do, like have that where we still look at the things that are working well. It's always, applying, again, one of our approaches to our plan is to look for continuous improvement. So we always want to keep an eye out for continuous improvement. Even for the things that are working well, is there opportunity for us to enhance those things as well? So we don't want to just start completely over. We definitely want to give credence to the things that work well, but also explore other opportunities to enhance, revise, and implement some new things as well.
Very clear. I appreciate that. And as far as that mix goes, do you have a sense now of what elements of your approach are working really well versus what you might need to, take a look at stopping or slowing down? And the reason I ask is because when I think about Dane and I putting together our proposal responses, we want to work around what you're currently doing and really integrate those visions. And so if we have a strong sense of what's working well versus what needs some attention going in, we can speak to that in our proposals versus if we don't, probably what we might say in our responses is something like at the beginning of partnership, we'll work to take an inventory of all those things and learn about them. So I'm just curious where you see that happening in the process.
And my manager will be the perfect person to answer this question because he used to directly manage the employee development function, and now it's indirectly managing it. The position is in the process of being filled. So Laura, do you feel comfortable being able to speak to some of, being able to respond to some of the things, inquiries, since you do work directly in that program?
Well, the one thing I feel confident speaking upon is the culture we have here. Because when you're talking about starting something new, and I know I'm not answering your question, so forgive me, but I would like to share that having been in an organization where half of the workforce is probably not half. You have people who've been here for a very long time, right? Someone like me, about 20 years or so. Then you have people who are just coming in. When it comes to changing anything in our organization, I want you to keep in mind, like, if you have a strategy that's been proven that would help in helping our leaders change and take on a new change and helping them to lead others to go with them. And I bring up the fact that you have people who've been here a long time with new people, because right now in our organization, we're going through so many changes. So we are going to use this competency model right now. I want you to think about what are some strategies that for you both in your work have worked when you're helping an organization who's already gone through so many changes. How do you set things up so that it's on the surface relevant to people with what they do every day, and also not intimidating, in a way where it's understandable of the why. And also that it doesn't cause, I guess, change fatigue, because sometimes I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but just with all these programs Jaisha and I work on, we are very mindful of our audience all the time. We're always trying to put ourselves in their shoes and like, how's the best way to connect with them? What's the best way for this information to land for them? So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but that's what I'm confident in talking about right now.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because as you know, just, you know, on a global level, we've, you know, been in a lot of change. You know, COVID has it turned our world upside down. And so there's still some adjustment, and we're still in this process. You know, COVID hasn't completely gone away. And so just taking in that to mind and how that impacted the business landscape and dynamic within the organization. And then we have this, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion plan that's 5 years. And we're asking, you know, all employees to go on this journey with us. And that requires a lot of change, a lot of engaging in self-reflection and things of that nature. And so there's that piece to it. And then they have, you know, other changes that are going on in the organization. We have a new financial management system, LC. So that's changing the dynamics of how they do their work and things of that nature. So there's so many layers and nuances to that. So I think that to add to Laura's point, there needs to be some sensitivity around how to structure that communication strategy and plan to be empathetic to all of the change that these employees are experiencing.
Absolutely. Is that an uncommon season of change? I know with pandemic, of course, turned everything upside down. You know, here a few years out from the start of that, are we still feeling just as tumultuous? Is there any end in sight in terms of how they feel about the change management initiatives that you guys have going on right now? Or does it feel like, gosh, we are in the trenches right now and we don't know when we're going to see light again? What's the sentiment right now?
What would you say, Laura?
I think it depends. When Jaisha and I, we have opportunities to interface with a lot of our employees directly, and you know, everyone is trying to learn the district way, and I bring that up because that's kind of a community that we have here that's been that has evolved, right? So when I talk about the district way, what that is, it's remnants of legacy, right? Of how things go. Because that's so strong, looking at all the changes ahead of us, I feel like it still feels big and a little bit blurry. So I don't know if that helps answer your question.
No, it does. And I'm curious, what types of change management, I guess, like communication initiatives do you have going right now to help people understand how all these things fit, to help them, you know, get buy-in, to help them just kind of move through this season of stress and learning? And what are you guys doing currently that's working to manage that?
Jaisha, do you mind if I try to answer that a little bit? I don't know if it's exactly working. I'm not going to claim that what's working, what's not working, because it's hard for me to know because I'm not the receiver. But on the giving end, we've tried lots of emails, posting on our inner district website, so website specifically for employees, newsletters. We have brown bag sessions, which is kind of like this Q&A session here. Using word of mouth hasn't been as strong as it used to be. And I'm saying that on purpose to give a legacy of, you know what you know because of who you know, and so breaking away from that. So I'm telling you everything that we've been doing because, in my opinion, it hasn't been strategic. Okay.
Well, that's a great jumping off point, because my next question, thinking about the strategic connection between the initiatives you have going on right now, think about the fact that what I just heard from you, Laura, was, it's a little fuzzy, right? We're not exactly sure how all of our employees in different spaces are perceiving the culture right now, perceiving the change management, and I wonder, has there been any, I guess, thought or discussion around how the employee feedback program could be leveraged to inform this leadership competency, to use that feedback program to learn insights about how folks are feeling with regard to change management, with regard to some of these pieces, so we can promote things in a way that will be well received?
Aisha and I just had a conversation about that. I'll let you.
That really is kind of the goal of the employee. I know that Laura that's your RFP for the employee feedback program, but that's really what we want this. I think that's where the intersection happens here, is that we do want to have those tools be leveraged to learn and get that information and find the best ways to engage and connect with employees. Emails, after you get so many of them, you just delete, or you think I'm gonna go read it and we don't know. I have to be honest, like even with our internal website, I don't check it maybe once or twice a month. So I don't know if I am part of the population that's the norm or what have you. But from what I've heard is that they want to direct people more to the internal webpage. But if there's nothing that prompts me to think about it, then I don't think about going there. And so I'm assuming that probably may be a similar experience for other employees. So I think that with anything, communication is something that can always be improved and enhanced. So that would be my response, is that we definitely have areas to grow in how we connect and communicate and engage with our employees, especially because we have employees that are situated in different locations. And so that it's both a challenge and an opportunity. So we can say that, yeah, because they're here, they're not at the main office downtown, that's a barrier. But I think it's also an opportunity to figure out, how do we engage? How do we connect? How do we meet them where they are? So, and again, get their buy-in, leverage their input and things of that nature. So we definitely want some best practices and tools, especially even in this hybrid model. And a lot of even the large think tanks are still trying to figure that out too. So that's where we have to, because we still have employees that for the classifications that are conducive to work from remotely. We have some employees that come into the office a couple of days and they work from remote areas, work remotely. So there are some best practices on how to engage a remote hybrid workforce as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's really, really helpful to think about, because what that sparks for me is, if the timing was able to work out in a close enough way, right? Something like I heard a lot of materials and equipment concerns, for example, as a measurement of engagement. Not the challenge that we have too few, resources, but we actually have too many that maybe aren't known about or being leveraged. And so being able to, leverage pulse surveys, for example, to get a sense of, by location, by classification, which employees are engaging with which tools, and like where their knowledge and expertise is at with those, to ideally come in and help them understand what to use, or, change our approach to match their need. It sounds like there's an openness to connecting the through line that way.
Definitely open. Okay, I know that we're over time at 11:10. Are there any additional questions that I can, or Laura and I can answer for you to the best of our ability? And if there are questions that come up, my email address and contact information is on the RFP webpage. Feel free to email them to me. And if there's anything that I am unable to answer, I can also leverage, my supervisor or other subject matter experts within the organization that have more institutional knowledge than I do. And again, I will follow up regarding if there's possibility to extend the deadline. And again, if we do that, that will be communicated on our RFP, and then we'll let folks know that the deadline has been extended.
Okay, thank you. This has been very helpful. Really appreciate it, and you're being so available and transparent. So thank you.
That's what we try to do. But we have it transparent so that, you know, it helps to provide you with enough information to submit a solid proposal.
Yep. No, it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah, as Dane said, all the important questions come up after the proposers conference. So appreciate you being available. We'll definitely be reaching out.
All right. Thank you. And looking forward to seeing your proposals.
Yep. Thank you.
Enjoy the remainder of your day.
You too.
You guys too.
Bye.